The battle stations blared across the Valiant's edge, and Zekthor felt his three hearts hammering in synchronized dread. In his 2 centuries of service to the Galactic Coalition, he had never seen the Vrask swarm descend with such ferocity. The insectoid horrors moved like a plague across the viewport, their chitinous bodies blotting out the stars. "All hands to combat stations." Commander Errol's voice crackled through the intercom, the Telvanni officer's usual composure fractured by panic. Zekthor rushed to his gunner position, his mandibles clicking nervously. Beside him, the human gunner crew was already in position. He'd heard stories about humans, the newest species to join the coalition, but had dismissed most of them as exaggerated war tales. They looked so fragile, these bipedal mammals with their soft skin and limited sensory organs. The girl, Dottie, was checking her weapons array with swift, efficient movements. Her dark hair was tied back, revealing a face that seemed impossibly young for a soldier. The boy, Ario, sat at the adjacent station, his fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. Neither looked particularly impressive. "First time fighting Vrask?" Dottie asked without looking up, her voice steady. "No," Zekthor replied, trying to keep the tremor from his voice. "But never this many. The shields won't hold. We should evacuate to the escape pods while we—" "Not happening," Ario interrupted, his eyes fixed on the incoming swarm. "We hold the line here." The first wave hit like a meteor storm. The ship shuddered violently as Vrask fighters crashed against the shields, their acidic projectiles eating away at the barrier's integrity. Zekthor fired his cannon, watching 3 Vrask explode in green bursts, but for everyone he destroyed, 10 more appeared. "Shields at 60%. Someone shouted, 40%! 20! The shields collapsed with a sound like breaking glass amplified 1,000 times. Zekthor's blood ran cold. They were dead. They were all dead. Then Dottie laughed. It wasn't a sound of hysteria or fear. It was genuine amusement, as if someone had told her an excellent joke. She stood up from her station, cracking her knuckles. "Ario, you owe me 50 credits. I told you they'd break through in under 3 minutes. Yeah, Ario replied, also standing. He was grinning. "Let's make this interesting." Zekthor watched in disbelief as the 2 humans grabbed combat rifles from the weapons locker. The Vrask were already cutting through the outer hull. In minutes, maybe seconds, they'd be flooding the ship's corridors. Hand-to-hand combat with Vrask was suicide. A single warrior stood 7 feet tall with razor-sharp appendages and mandibles that could crush durasteel. "What are you doing?" Zekthor demanded. "We need to fall back to the reinforced sections." Dottie checked her rifle's power cell and smiled at him. It was a smile that made Zekthor's survival instincts scream. "We're humans," she said simply. "We don't fall back." The hull breached. 3 Vrask warriors poured through the gap, their screech deafening in the confined space. They were nightmares made flesh, all teeth and claws and inhuman hunger. Ario moved first. He didn't run away, he ran toward them. His first shots took out the lead Vrask's visual organs, and while it reeled, he slid beneath its thorax and fired upward into its soft underbelly. The creature collapsed, twitching. Dottie was already engaging the second one. She moved like water, like she was dancing rather than fighting. When the Vrask lunged with its scythe-like forelimb, she didn't dodge. She stepped into the attack, letting it pass over her shoulder, and jammed her rifle into the joint where head met thorax. The point-blank shot decapitated the creature. The third Vrask, perhaps sensing it was outmatched, tried to retreat. Ario shot out its leg joints and it collapsed. Dottie finished it with a single shot. The entire engagement lasted 14 seconds. "Corridor secure," Dottie reported calmly, as if she'd just completed a routine maintenance check. More breaches. More Vrask. Zekthor found himself fighting alongside them, and he began to understand. Humans didn't just fight, they thrived in combat. Where other species calculated risks and sought survival, humans seemed to find joy in the struggle itself. They turned warfare into an art form. Ario took a claw to the shoulder that would have killed most species. He grunted, cauterized the wound with a plasma torch, and kept fighting. Dottie got thrown against a bulkhead hard enough to dent the metal. She stood up, shook her head, and said, "Okay, now I'm mad." They fought for hours. The tide of Vrask seemed endless, but the humans never tired, never faltered. They made jokes between firefights. They encouraged the other crew members. When a Telvanni soldier froze in fear, Ario pulled him to cover and said, "Hey, you're doing great. Just breathe and shoot." Breathing first, though, kind of important. Zekthor realized something profound as he watched them. Humans weren't fearless. He could see the adrenaline, the stress markers in their physiology. They were terrified, but they fought anyway. They chose to stand when every instinct screamed to run, and somehow that made them more formidable than any creature that simply didn't know fear. When coalition reinforcements finally arrived, they found the Valiant's edge still intact. The corridors were littered with Vrask corpses, hundreds of them. The human contingent, all 12 of them, had held an entire battleship against a swarm that should have overrun them in minutes. Dottie and Ario sat on ammunition crates in the cargo bay, both covered in wounds and alien blood. They were sharing a ration pack and arguing about whose kill count was higher. Commander Iril approached them, his crystalline eyes wide with something between awe and fear. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you do this?" Ario looked up, his boyish face split by a tired grin. "Commander, there's something you need to understand about humans. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest or the smartest, but we're the most stubborn creatures the universe has ever seen. When you tell us we can't do something, when you tell us the odds are impossible." He glanced at Dottie, who finished his thought. "That's when we decide to prove the universe wrong." Zekthor would live another century after that day. He would fight in dozens more battles, earn countless commendations, and eventually retire as a decorated war hero. But he would never forget the day he fought beside humans and understood why. In galactic standard, they had begun calling these fragile, impossible creatures by a new name, the unyielding. Because humanity didn't just survive the impossible. They made it look easy. And sometimes they even laughed while doing it.